years.
Multi-link, access every time, everywhere I go. Multi-link, 24/7 access for me. It's just a win-win when we use multi-link. This card is Jamaican built, yeah. Fast and secure, you can use anywhere. Spend while supporting the economy. Look for the multi-link logo on your card and benefit from Jamaica's largest debit payment network. Multi-link, 24/7 access for me.
What would I do without my multi-link?
Did you know that the flu can lead to hospitalization and even death? Pregnant women, persons 60 years and older, babies and children, and persons with a chronic illness such as diabetes, asthma, or heart disease are at a high risk for complications from the flu. Get the flu vaccine today. Visit your nearest health center and ask to be vaccinated. The flu is no joke. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Cover Story is brought to you by
Multilink. Roll with control. Use Multilink. Safe, fast, and accepted in more locations.
Multi-link, access every time, everywhere I go. Multi-link, 24/7 access for me. It's just a win-win when we use multi-link. This card is Jamaican built, yeah. Fast and secure, you can use anywhere. Spend while supporting the economy. Look for the multi-link logo on your card and benefit from Jamaica's largest debit payment network. Multi-link, 24/7 access for me.
What would I do without my multi-link?
Good afternoon, listeners. Thank you so very much for staying with us. You're still live inside Must Listen Radio. This is Nationwide at 5. I'm Tyrone Reed.
And I'm Siobhan Campbell.
How are you, Sir Siobhan?
I'm okay.
Good afternoon as well to all our viewers on YouTube. And of course, if you're keeping tabs on social media, we welcome you as well. We want to turn our attention in the cover story to the political side of the COVID-19 pandemic in the midst of this surge in cases, and hospitals are reportedly on the brink of collapse. There is what is being described in some quarters as deafening silence from the Prime Minister of Jamaica on the current pressing national issues that pertain to COVID-19. Yesterday, we heard from senior medical officers attached to the Cornwall Regional Hospital out in St. James, and of course the corporate area-based University Hospital of the West Indies.
Clinical coordinator at Cornwall Regional Hospital, Dr. Delroy Fay, said the facility is at a critical stage where it's now ordering oxygen for patients daily.
No one really anticipated the sort of influx that we were going to expect in. So normally we would have ordered oxygen every 3 days. Now we have to do it every day. And if need be, we might have to do it twice a day. And there's an area in the accident and emergency department which is being worked at now. It's like an expansion to house that area to ease that pressure off the corridor issue.
That's Dr. Delroy Frey, the clinical coordinator at the Cornwall Regional Hospital. Meanwhile, Jamaica has yet to receive the first batch of COVID-19 vaccines.
Earlier this month, the Minister of Health, Dr. Christopher Tufton, announced that based on correspondence from the World Health Organization, the WHO, the country could receive the first set of COVID-19 vaccines by the end of February. However, on Monday, the PAHO advisor on non-communicable diseases and mental health, Dr. Michelle Harris, told Nationwide News that the February timeline may still be met.
Given all that is happening in the country, there has been widespread public debate on how the government of Jamaica is handling the pandemic after almost a year. Many are making a comparison between the frequent updates that came from the Prime Minister in the early days of the pandemic and the perceived deafening silence that Jamaicans are now receiving.
Well, this evening in our cover story, we want to hear the perspectives of political commentators on this issue. We're turning to Nadine Spence, Kevin O'Brien Chang, and Saeed Bernard. Yes, Saeed Bernard. Good afternoon and welcome to Nationwide to all of you.
Hi, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you so very much for joining us. And I will begin with you, Lady Nadine Spence. What do you make of it? Is this an unfair criticism of the Prime Minister, or is it on point? Is the Prime Minister missing in action, as some are accusing him?
No, it's hard to say because I understand people's complaints that perhaps they're not hearing from the Prime Minister as much as they did. I don't think they're not hearing, I think, as much as they did. But I'm not sure why they are complaining that they're not hearing from him. You know why? Because I think Jamaicans know what he would say, and I don't know what different he would say as opposed to what we already know about how this pandemic is unfolding. I think we are fully aware of what we need to hear. And you know what I would like to hear, though? I would like to hear the Prime Minister talk about the legislative changes that need to be trained to deal with those who decide to flout the rules. That is what I have wanted to hear from the government, that to tell me that they're serious about dealing with those people who break the law. What we have now is a situation where people are not held responsible, so people do whatever they want. And if you listen to the Ministry of Health, and they speak all the time, and I think it is from them we need to hear. They talk all the time about the people who have the highest case infection rate and the people who have the highest death rate. And so we know that the people in this country who need to exercise some amount of care with how they're handling and the pandemic and behaving in the pandemic are young people. We hear all the information all the time. Information I want to hear has nothing to do with a daily update. I really want to hear the law change that says people are going to be ticketed, arrested, or something when they flout the rules. If I'm not hearing that, no, I don't need to hear from the Prime Minister. I think we're getting enough information from the Ministry of Health.
What about you, Mr. O'Brien Chang? What is your opinion on this matter? Should the Prime Minister be out and in front, addressing the nation regularly?
In action. The country is panicking because of the outbreaks everywhere. We're wondering when we're going to get vaccines. And nothing from Mr. Holness. A large part of this COVID thing all around the world, where you have seen the countries where the leaders go to talk straight to the people on a regular basis have been more successful. You can know something, when everybody knows it. A child will know something. When a parent says it, they know it better. They pay attention more. And that is the situation. The man is the father of the nation. The Prime Minister is always that way. And he has always been very reassuring. When I listen to his press conferences, he explains things and all that. I've always felt a lot more reassured afterwards. But no, I'm not reassured at all, because the spike is going up. We're at 26% today. Every country has had its surge, Mark. The US and UK went through their surges about a month ago. So it's not something we didn't expect sooner or later. But we need the Prime Minister there. So look, we have things in place. We shouldn't be hearing from every Tom, Dick, and Harry. We have things in place. You must keep wearing your mask, do what, we're all in this together. And the vaccines, they're all over the place. We want to hear when are we getting vaccines and what's the plan. And as I say, other countries have gotten gifts and stuff. I mean, but we need to hear the plan from the man at the top. This is a national crisis. The national leader must speak. It's been very weak since the election. I'm going to tell you straight. He's far before election, he was much better. He has been very weak, and I don't think he got lazy because the PNP is such a pathetic opposition. Or if he got just 49 seats, he doesn't need to worry. But this is not the man he was a year ago.
Strong words there from Kevin O'Brien Chang. Saeed Bernard, before we go to the break, we just want to take your view on it. Is this a fair criticism of the Prime Minister that he's missing in action?
It is very fair, actually. I actually think they understated the criticism because, again, there's a lack of oxygen, a lack of nurses, and there's a spike. All of this is happening. There's still crime. Let us not forget about crime. And then there's the grand COVID-19. There's the vaccination plan that Sir O'Brien Chang spoke about. And at the end of the day, I remember before elections, the man was leading the charge. He was at every press conference leading the charge, trying to reassure the country. And the people said, there was even a criticism that, hey, why don't they allow the Minister of Health to talk more? And people said, we need to see the leader in crisis. And I agree. And so I'm wondering, because the crisis has now steepened, and we're not hearing from the Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, it's even started to the point where persons are now speculating on social media that the Prime Minister may even have COVID. And the mere fact that people are speculating means that the people want to hear from the Prime Minister. The people are searching for the Prime Minister. And I don't know if we need to put out an APB for him, but the country needs him right now. And they want to hear from him.
Well, I've not heard that one. That speculation, Siobhan, have you, that the Prime Minister may in fact...
This is news to me.
I've not heard that speculation at all. Of course, you know, we will make attempts to speak with the office of the Prime Minister on... but we've not heard that one at all. That one has not come up on our radar any at all. But we're going to take a break. We're up on a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll get from our analysts, we want them to tell us how would they rate the government's handling at this particular point. The government really received rave reviews at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Have things changed? We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have more for you.
Exim Bank cares. Exim cares about your business. Exim cares about you.
The time by Exim Bank is
5:46.
Set your table just the way you like it, with those who mean the most. Set your table with Eve, the first family of fine foods.
The temperature by Eve is
28 degrees Celsius in capital Kingston and 27 in Montego Bay.
Your taxes.
Experience the convenience of this tax season. File and pay your final income tax return for 2020 and estimated return for 2021 due on March 15 with tax support in so many ways. Using our web services, Customer Service Center 888 Tax Help or Special Taxpayer Assistance Program. Tutorials available online at jamaicatax.gov.jm. All income tax returns, including individual, must be filed online with more options to pay. Tax Administration Jamaica, changing the way we do business.
Delta Supply, look out be the big D. No other choice, look out be the big D. Listen what me tell you, look out be the big D. We service what we sell you, look out be the big D. Industrial equipment, we specialize. Cleaning solutions and supplies, power tools, hand tools, welding, fabrication, agriculture, landscaping, irrigation.
Call us at 876-302-61114. Delta Supply, we service what we sell.
So that middle ground is what we want. Low, stable, and predictable inflation. Because low, stable, and predictable inflation is to the economy like what the baseline is to reggae music. Listen up. Give me little one drop. Make the baseline roll and catch. Reggae music run the country. Like low and stable inflation of a run the economy.
A message by Bank of Jamaica.
At Active Home Center, we believe everything for your home should be under one roof at affordable prices. Come in and create amazing spaces with our tiles, bathroom fixtures, appliances, lighting, furniture, and a whole lot more. Plus, check out our recently added PVC fencing and casement windows. Visit us at 84 Constant Spring Road. Active Home Center. More savings, more choices.
Good evening, listeners. You are in the cover story. We are currently discussing the current surge in cases in COVID-19. We're at crisis level, but unfortunately it seems many believe we're not hearing enough from the Prime Minister. Joining us in this discussion is political commentator Nadine Spence, another political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang, and political and social commentator Saeed Bernard. I'd like to ask you, Ms. Spence, some people would suggest that in moments like this, this is the reason we have ministers. It's their portfolio responsibilities to speak on such issues.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I listen from the Minister of Health regularly, and I hear the experts in health speak. And so I think the information that we need is out there. And I think at the start of the pandemic, we heard a lot from the Prime Minister and from the government. I think, however, I'm not saying we don't want to hear from them now, but I don't want people to come and talk to me again about mask wearing and staying home and all that. I think we know that. I honestly believe that the government ought to have instituted some legislative changes to deal with those people who constantly flout the rules as it relates to the coronavirus. And so there's this atmosphere of impunity around the actions of those who don't care. I want to hear them come to the table with what we are going to do around that. And I agree that the uncertainties around the vaccine is problematic. And the fact that the rest of the Caribbean is moving ahead. Every other country in the Caribbean has significantly moved into their vaccination process, and we haven't heard anything convincing enough about when Jamaica is going to start. So if the government is going to come to the table, that is what I want to hear. I cannot listen to one more update about social distancing and mask wearing. It has to be with something substantial new. I don't want them to just come just because there is an uptick. That is happening. There is an update, and we know what is happening in the health sector. We know where issues are, but something else needs to be done, and it can't be the same old. And so, yes, fine, we need to hear from the government, but with what information? It can't be just a press conference for a press conference sake. That's not going to work.
The Prime Minister's alleged absence aside, some may say it's not true because the Prime Minister has spoken at functions and so on, and so even the allegation that he may have contracted COVID-19 is not based in fact. So let's switch the conversation a bit here. The government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, they were lauded at the outset. Even, I think, came in for honorable mention by the head of the WHO. Yes, Ghebreyesus. Yes, Dr. Ghebreyesus. So, Kevin O'Brien Chang, comparing then and now, is the government failing in its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic now that cases are on a canter? Kevin O'Brien Chang? Saeed Bernard, you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
You can take that one. It seems we've lost him. We're going to make contact with Kevin O'Brien Chang again. So, Saeed, would you mind responding to that? How would you rate the government's handling now that the cases are on a canter?
Well, I mean, before the election again, the handling was way better. You know, there was more communication with the people. They were telling the people how we're moving forward with this virus. What has happened now, it seems like there's a standstill. It seems like, you know, we are now trying to figure out, loggerhead trying to figure out, okay, do we go with A, B, or C? And that is what is really frustrating the Jamaican citizens, for want of a better word. And so, as it relates to the COVID handling now, because of the several uncertainties that exist, we are now at another stage where the outbreak has been increasing. You know, there's a spike. There's now a vaccination wondering as it relates to, you know, what is the plan going forward. Without this information, you're not able to critically assess the plans to say, okay, this makes sense. And so, because of the mere absence of a well thought out, clear plan as to how the country will move forward, the government will get a failing grade at this point. But I'd like to note that earlier, a couple months ago, or even 9 months ago, as a matter of fact, the government was passing because they were giving us the plan. They were showing us how we're going to walk forward, hand in hand. And so because of what is happening now, it has slipped into a failing grade.
Nadine, your ranking? Nadine Spence?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes,
I'm here.
your ranking then versus now?
Of course, clearly at the beginning, we saw that the response to the pandemic from the government was good. You know, everybody spoke about it. We applauded them in their efforts. At this point, no, I'm not at all satisfied. I think, however, that we wasted a lot of time in the midpoint of the pandemic when we should have been getting tougher on dealing with people. A lot of things happened that, including the elections, that I think kind of made the thing almost a joke. And a number of Jamaicans, particularly young Jamaicans, didn't take it seriously. I think some of the messaging was also wrong and still continues to be wrong, because I think younger people feel as if they've been absolved from the responsibility of COVID-19. I think the messaging needed to change at a point as to the kind of behavior that we expect from those people who are carriers versus those people who are more likely to die from the disease. I think as well that at different points in the progress of the pandemic, government action needed to change, and it didn't. And so I can't at this point say throughout the exercise of the management of the pandemic, the government has, I would give them a passing grade at this point. No, I can't.
I'm going to bring you here, Mr. Bernard. This suggestion that the suggestion from Mrs. Spence that the messaging needed to change and further actions needed to be taken. Certainly, at this stage in the pandemic response, we know what actions can be taken, what actions need to be taken, particularly as it results to personal responsibility. Do you think it's fair, when this sort of fatigue is setting into the population, to blame the Holness administration for what is a failing on the part of Jamaican society?
I've never been of the stance that they should be blamed for that speaking about personal responsibility. As a matter of fact, I think they've whipped that donkey several times. I've actually been impressed, and I mean, I'm not surprised that they were constant with their messaging. You know, it was very consistent. It was always about wear your mask. It was always about staying at home. I mean, they've always spoken about younger people, listen to me, are the carriers of this disease. We've also heard it in the orders and the press conferences by Mr. Holness, where he says, you know, if you're over 70, just stay at home right now, because, you know, you are what you'd call the group of people that's more susceptible to this disease. And they've also spoke about asymptomatic people and, you know, that prevalence being amongst us young people. So the messaging has always been on point. The target as it relates to communication has always been on point, in my opinion. What has been letting it seem as if the communication isn't working is because there is no system to back up that communication. And when I talk about system, we want to see something where you can arrest and be sentenced or fined for not wearing your mask, or for being in a party after 7 o'clock in whichever community, you know. And so the messaging is there, but there's not a system to carry out the message.
Which takes me to where I want to go. You see, I have a conflict, you know. Nadine and Saeed, I have a conflict. And the conflict is, if we go by the rubric of the low number of cases at the outset, and then we lauded the government to say, yes, they're doing well. And now when cases are on a canter, to say the government should bear some of the blame. We had the Minister of Local Government on here, and he says, look, we took the rave reviews. We'll also take the blame for some of what is happening. But the conflict arises in me, Nadine and Saeed, when I see, like what I saw on Twitter today, with people partying in a pandemic. No mask in sight. People just rubbing up against each other. One of my colleagues said the corona must be doing cartwheels in a setting like that. Huh? I have a conflict when those who are governed are not abiding. How do you hold the government responsible for that? That is my conflict.
And I agree, and that's why I said to you, for me, the government coming to have a press conference doesn't change that fact. You know, it doesn't change the fact that unless as Jamaicans we decide that the pandemic is going to be halted or stopped or curtailed the spread of the disease, It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And you're so right. And and it still continues to be a conflict within myself. And I remember at some point, Tyrone, and I'm sure you remember when Jamaicans on Twitter were coughing that the government was too stringent and they're behaving like they're dictators, and all kinds of quarrels kept coming up. But I also think that even in the midst of that, when you recognize the kind of people that you have to, because Jamaicans are not easy to deal with. And I recognize that now more than ever, that you can't win with Jamaicans. And we've politicized the pandemic in a very significant way.
Indeed, that's a very good point. We have politicized it. Kevin O'Brien Chang is back with us. We're going to try and give him the last word. Kevin, how would you rate the handling of the government, the government's handling of the pandemic? Then they were really being given all kinds of accolades about their handling of the pandemic. Now with the cases on Akanta, how would you rate them? 1 and 2, how do you blame the government? Yes, how do you blame the governors when the governed are partying in a pandemic? Those two things. We give you the last word.
A few months ago, I gave them 8.5. Now it's falling, maybe a 7, dropping below 7 to 6.5. The thing is, you need to, the Jamaicans and people need to tell them over and over again. And in the end, all you want is reassurance, People want to know the government is still in control of the situation, that there are plans in place to deal with all eventualities. And there's a vaccine plan. It's like children hearing lots of scary stories at school. They want daddy to reassure them. Things going to be all right, it's going to work out. That's what we want from Mr. Holness. We don't expect magic, but we do expect reassurance and confidence that, yes, the plans are in place. And that is what the people are asking of their leader.
The police need a law where can lock up people.
Well, that is a different case. The laws can't pass so quick, but the Prime Minister can
reiterate what needs to be done,
and he can reassure us the plans are in place for all eventualities, and it is going to work out okay. Reassure the people.
We gentlemen and lady, we have to go. Hopefully we can have you all on again and really have a robust discussion. Thank you so very much for having
Up first this evening, a man who was charged under the anti-gang law but freed by the courts says the police are now hunting to kill him. The mother of the man also claims the police have visited her home 3 times. TVJ's Kirk Wright has this primetime news follow-up.
On November 8, the courts released Mr. George Ellis after the Director of Public Prosecutions dropped the case against him. Vincent Willesley is his attorney.
When the DPP entered a nully, that was the right, just, and decent thing to have done.
Mr. Ellis's mother, Valda Basco, says the police have been to her house in St. Andrew 3 times asking for her son. She says when the police came last Thursday, they said they had a search warrant.
Because them tell me explain, so then say we're going to kill him. And say I must prepare to bury him, because they will kill him. That's what the officer tell me. And when I was talking to me on the veranda, I tell him, say, a narrow road, I walk on. I'm not telling no lie. Him don't come here. I hold up me to one ear, I say, God is my witness. Him don't come here. Him don't come. And when I was talking to one on the veranda, I said, about 3 or 4 of them take the back and go around the back. And same time, my baby mother come around. And I said to her, I said, get the key. Because through while going up there, I make her gate go way high up to the back. And I said to her, I said, get the key for me quick. I want to go around the back and I don't want to go plant nothing around there and tell no lie upon him.
Ms. Basco says while searching, the police said they found a loaded magazine on her premises, a claim she has disputed.
I tell him, say, then can't find no magazine here because I don't have anybody here.
Ms. Basco and her son's girlfriend were the only ones at home when the police came. The family's attorney is confident none of the 2 women had a magazine at the house.
So to my mind, there's only one inference that can be drawn. One inescapable inference that can be drawn. And that it must have been planted by the police.
Mr. Ellis says he has not been to the house since his release.
I've been to Augustown for 2 years, 7 months, 3 weeks and 4 days now.
He says the police have accused him of being the leader of a gang called No Dollars, No Cents. But Mr. Ellis says No Dollars, No Cents is simply a promotional entity.
I have permits that the same Tree police grant permit for the same No Dollars, No Cents promotion when we're hosting any party or round robin or any event at all.
After spending almost 3 years in lockup for 3 crimes which he has all been acquitted of, Mr. Ellis says he wants the police to leave him alone.
Because I'm in fear of my life, of the police then, because they're sending threat and they come at my yard. I'm in fear of my life and I want to live a normal life. I want to live a normal life for me and my kids, them and my family.
Kirk Wright, TVJ.
I put clause 1. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 2. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 3. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 4. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 5. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 6. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 7. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 8. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 9. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 10. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 11. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 12. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put clause 13. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. And I put clause 14. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Those against? There's a bit. We're going to take the second bill I put clause 1. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put clause 2. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put clause 3. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put clause 4. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put clause 5. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put clause 6. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put clause 7. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The question is that I do report the bill as I've been, the bills, I want to put both at the same time. The bills as having passed the committee stage without any amendment. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that, we having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be, to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Bello and Blacker immortalized that tree and wrote a song. And that became almost a kind of hit song from campus for that tree there. Now, for the students at this campus, they know which tree I'm talking about. For the people who have visit, is that tree around the corner there, sir?
That's a tree alive.
Is that tree around the corner there, sir? No, you see for the people who must say, yeah, just a tree alive. Understand?
We know a wisdom tree and we know
You know the history of it?
They know of the own credit, they don't know the history.
Which is the first name?
Well, the first name, I know it says wisdom tree, the first name here, but
No.
there was a name before that still.
The first name was Ganja Tree.
Ganja tree, but we don't want to call that.
You know what call that? That was the first official name. It was called Ganja Tree. Now, we there and we know about the Ganja Tree, and then one day we come down and yeah, me said then we start euphemize the Ganja Tree and start call it Wisdom Tree. One day we go over art school and I ask for a man and them say, yeah, I'm over Amsterdam. And we talk about and, well, now it named the Tree of Life. Now I feel so that is a central thing that I should use to kind of introduce Gene, because Gene are the people who dubbed that the Ganja Tree. That was their tree. When Gene them did their drama school, that was where same purpose now, because when people hear Tree of Life, I'm going say, I want them to over there. I pay ganja them meet and smoke. Which is mostly true. But that's not it. You know, the man them meet over there, if you ever pass through and see when the man them gather, them discuss politics, them discuss the world, them discuss world politics, local politics, them write poems. And and lately I hear that religion is added to the whole thing. See, no, drums were always there. See, drums were always there. We still have drums, sir?
Of course, we have Reds and the resident drummer. We have Bull before.
Alright. Them man are the current man, them who occupy the tree here. So they have to link up. Now, this is how the tree was. It was always a tree where people meet and then discuss who will try next as government. It seemed like a very powerful tree, because when we met there, we really felt like we were shaping the country. You know, we really felt like we could dictate what the policies should be, the national policies, and we really felt like...
And we still are.
And we still are.
Yes.
So nothing has changed.
Nothing.
But I just want to know, say, this tree was birthed by the featured guest who we have tonight. And we have a peer respect for that, for no, say, look, them people come and them start a tradition. And this is like about 30 years ago we are talking about, you know. And that tradition there lives on today with the same fervor, with the same validity, and the same sense of purpose, the same urgency that it had then. And for you who don't know that tree there, whether you call it Amsterdam, the Tree of Life or whatever, at some point, we must check it out. And I know in years to come, when things kind of change and things, that people will be making pilgrimages from abroad to come down here to go to that tree to say, yeah, what is it about this tree?
They already do.
You know, if you have a tree where you can have Oko, you know, Gene, Mikey Smith, you know, Sage, Ganja, Debbie. If you have all of them people that gather under this tree, there must be something about this tree. So, it is this tree now, I'm hoping to kind of, without saying, mention as a kind of metaphor for say, look, Jean is one of the people who is the root, and she planted this tree of activism, of speaking out, of finding your own voice. And that tree that still live on the campus. All of them people who mentioned were students here at the same time. As we said, that's something we still can't get over. And all of these people were pioneers in claiming the reclamation of voice, of our own voice as children of the diaspora, of children who understood that we belonged, our claim belonged long before the diaspora. That our civilization, our claims was long before the Arabian invasion that took over the pyramids them and lick off the Sphinx nose. That we go way beyond that. That we were the people who traveled to the Caribbean and went back and toured people in Spain and say, yo, the planet is flat, you know. That we're talking about a civilization that go way back. That all the scientists, them black, white, yellow, and pink, and whatever color, have decided that, yeah, life started in Africa. And civilization started there, and knowledge started there. And that all of this is our birthright. And sometimes we forget. And sometimes we speak like we are descendants of slaves. But we aren't. You know, we're long before that. And the only time that we actually come to that and that full realization is when we really claim it. We'll come up and start live it and realize, hey, we have to reclaim our voice, we have to reclaim our identity. And these are the people who kept that alive, kept that echo alive, that echo that listened. We aren't children of slaves. We are from long before that. And we have the fire to prove it. And the fire, Gene, it still lives. And we're really happy to celebrate that fire tonight by having here. It just has not been built up. It's not right, you know.
I just want to say that if you pass by that tree in the still of the night and you hear a little rustling in the leaves, it's a breeze.
Poetry Society, join me. I consider it an honor, and I mean, I hope we can really fully appreciate what it is to have Gene here tonight. Gene, let's celebrate your presence tonight. It's an honor that you come to us, and we're happy to have you here. So, who are here to honor the inner the applause. See? Yes. Gene, Winter, please. That's why I'm a student in the
I got my voice is not very strong. Just a few months ago, I had 2 strokes. Left me in hospital and a lot of damage to my lungs. So now I have to be very careful with my voice. So forgive me if I don't extend the way I usually do. And I have like a few new poems for you. The story is old, but the poems are new. So I can't manage, you know, this is like, to remember all of these is very difficult. Welcome to Hearty's sister. The Naya I come. Take the load from off your head. Make we dance in the evening sun. The mountain climbed it hard, my child. We know it take backbone. The dry wood dust sweep on your throat. But who will go there water come? Nothing a level underfoot, but we now drop off a God earth. Some say the grass is sweeter, but sky rain know it worth. Enough curb and corner find me, but where road top, it's done. So welcome to Hearty's, darling. Nobody go flick your head back down a stone. I always want to do this poem. I'm sure you've heard this one before, but it's a very special poem for me because I remember the days when I was at home with the children and couldn't go out. And every time I read and see the audience, I remember the women who are at home all over the world who never make it to gatherings like this. It wasn't that the day did start out bad, or that no early morning dream did swing me foot off at the wrong side of the bed. It wasn't that the cold floor made me sneeze and my nose start run with misery. It wasn't a hangover headache morning or a worry rising morning. The sun did a shine same way and a cool breeze just a brushing from off of the sea. And the morning news was just the same as ever. 2 shot dead, truck lick 1, Israel still a broke up Palestine, and Bush think him have the whole world hand twist back at them. No, it wasn't the day that started out bad. It wasn't even pre-empty or post-empty. It was just another ordinary get up, get the children ready for sleep for school morning. Another wonder what to cook for dinner this evening morning. Just another same way morning. Another clean up the mess after everybody left morning. A perfectly ordinary morning of a perfectly ordinary day, just trying to find a way out. So it did hard to understand why the ordinary sight of my own frock hang up on the line with 2 clothespins should have stopped me from doing nothing but just bawl. This is a wonderful book for me because I was really into book because, as you know, we perform first. First and foremost, I was a performer. I learned my poems and I came up on stage and said them wherever. When I went first to England in 1985, I had 1 poster with the Mad Woman's poem. I didn't have a book or anything to take with me. And over the years, the books have come, and I've welcomed them as documentation. But this one was kind of special because it's new and selected poems. So all the old poems them are in there, and a lot of new ones as well. So when I was proofreading it, I was like reading myself for the first time in years. I said, "Right, you didn't really write that." Let me give you a little example of it. This is the last poem in the book, and it's called Migrants. So you can imagine this book is published in England. But talking about Africa, I love this land. Never thought of owning it till you came and fenced it all, stamped your name upon it, pushed me to the edge. I should have killed you then. Years passed, I was slowly starving, and I crossed to where you came from. But you had set up borders. So here I am, drowning in the oceans in between, tangled in the nets you set for fish. The other thing is like that Kingston people don't usually understand is that when you grew up on the north coast of Jamaica, you have a completely different existence because you're home to the world. The world is passing by your door. You're exposed to all these other influences. Whereas Kingston was allowed to be very strongly Jamaican. We got everything. And we had to work in the hotels and serve these foreigners. So the whole thing of slavery came back home to us, you know, the girl. And I know people say they don't like us using the term third world, but I find it a very beautiful phrase, third world. it rings poetically. And when I use it, people from all over the world know I'm talking to them. I'm not just talking to Jamaica. I'm talking to worlds where the same things have happened. Because it's mainly the third world countries that tourists go to. Because it's cheap. I am a third world girl, uncut diamond, unfound pearl, wakened from my dreaming far too early for my years, filled with stories yet untold. Young, unknowing, born too old. Just yesterday, childishly, I peeped at you through bushes while you browned off on my beach, and swam out of reach of my reality. I was held out by the fences round my shores. My water was locked off while you showered. While you ordered extra ice, my sweat just poured. Your path was lit up while I struggled in the dark. I worked with machete through the jungle while you strolled through a park. Now neatly groomed, I serve you cake and tea. I'm a third world girl. When you brought me to your world, you said you educated me. You said I brought no traditions, no history, no culture, no religion, no language with me. You admitted I could sing and dance, but without logic, so you couldn't take the chance to empower me with managing the money. You wanted me to stay the child, wide-eyed and sometimes wild, but always weak emotionally. I'm a third world girl. You can't love me cause you own me, cause your dollar buys my story, and my paradise is merely your hotel. I'm a third world girl caught in economic hell, cause you've stolen all my treasures to build your ivory towers, where I am now housekeeper and my man is in your cell. All you know is that I clean so well, and if you notice how my bosom swells, I'll be a whore with pleasures I could sell. No, please don't touch me, don't be tender. Can't you see I daren't surrender without the sureness of equality? You kissed me on Star Trek for the first time on the screen. Had to be under alien spell to get it seen. All men, your women, made themselves a pleasant scene, but I remain the hairy jungle queen, unless I dance, shave, and straighten on the catwalk tall and thin. This third world girl has grown to woman, proud in shape and hair and skin. She's not seeking your attention, but if conversation should begin, drop your guilt trip in the nearest bin. I'm a third world girl, born to the land where your flag's unfurled. Empire's over, but the rape's been done, and this land has been my story. Our meeting needs to face our history. Tell the present what's become of you and me, before the future brings the possibility. Love at first sight only happens to the free. And I'd like to finish with, yes, I'm sorry, it's a lot of energy. See if I can find it here. It's a poem I have done before here. It's called Caribbean Woman. And Muta and I had an argument because he said, why didn't we like calling ourselves African women? And I said, well, when I went to Africa, I enjoyed it and I was delighted to be there. But when I got there, the land space, and I couldn't get to the sea. And maybe it's because I went to Johannesburg and not to West Africa. But I miss my island. I miss being a small land surrounded by water. I miss knowing I couldn't get lost. Because if I walk long enough in any direction, I would find the sea, and then I can track it back to where I come from. Part of these islands who have shared this experience, and I must say, going to England brought it home to me because I was so welcomed by people of all the other different islands when I got there. I have to be ready for this because this one takes a lot of energy. I tell the men like Caribbean women do. Oh man, the Caribbean woman. Oh man, Oh man, the Caribbean woman, she don't afraid of the marching beat. She don't care how the timing sweet. She don't care if she kill a man. Just don't mash up she black. Oh man, the Caribbean woman does cry like rain a sprinkle early Friday morning. Does bawl like thunderstorm late Saturday night. Don't have no special time she wash the eye. Caribbean woman does throw our man out in the black and night when I meet him guilt with a moon blood red that make him feel like a dog. But she does welcome she man some days later when she finds she have a certain itching that no other finger can scratch. Caribbean woman. Yes. Caribbean woman does rise his son with a drum beat on him back to find him ancestry and then spoil him to find him wife. She does rise his daughter on a mountain range of breasts that bring the sweetest milk. Same time she cooking, washing, ironing. Same time she cussing, whining, joking. Same time she praying, oh Lord. And when you see she walk, Lord, when you see Caribbean woman walk, and she left the cliff to sand to see me rising with her flow, and the deep belly laughter slap of water against a rock. And on the right, the blue mountain peak she does force you to reach if you're seeking travel through our ferny green, our cocoa smell, our coffee mornings. Oh Lord, when you see she walk, holding freedom water balance on her head, and the hips that hold the sway to 1,000 hallelujahs, and the breasts that point the way to no man's land. That land she knows so well but never stopped for long. Oh Lord, when you see she walk, and if you don't see she, oh Caribbean man, if you don't see she, you don't find grace. No boy, you don't find grace. Oh man, sing me, the Caribbean woman. Oh man, the Caribbean woman. She don't afraid of the marching beat. She don't care if the timing sweet. She don't care if she kill a man. Just don't mash up she plan. Oh man, the Caribbean woman. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jean Binta Breeze. Thank you so much, Jean. It's been a pleasure, a real pleasure sharing this night with you, sharing this night with
Ghana, Lani, Jidabiria. Turn aside from everything that is a road near Angel Strand. Yes, Rastafari is alive. Rastafari is our life. He is the 225th great grandson of King Solomon. Acts 2nd, 19th verse declare. brethren, let me freely speak. Of David the prophet. God swear unto David according to the flesh. Through his lineage. He shall bring again David to sit upon his throne in the last day. Revelation 1. I am the root of David and the bright and morning star. Revelation 5 declare, turn aside from everything that there was none found worthy to walk the seven seals. No man in heaven, neither above the heavens. Did phone word. Here Kilas is the man who walked in the seven seals. Yes, he was found worthy. Upon the throne of David. Revelation declare it 17. And his title, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Isaiah 43 declare, I am he and there is none beside me. In the beginning there was no God, neither shall be any after her. Rastafari, the only father and mother. Turn aside from everything that I gave Egypt for thy ransom. Hit the whole country. You are my witnesses to prove and to know. I am your creator, your king, the Holy One of Israel. stand for.
I Rasta, in truth and righteousness, is in our ear giving reverence. And I tried with an undefeated genealogy. It is written chronologically. Such history is based upon a fundamental background, as even the prophet Marcus Garvey had prophesied as African fundamentalism. And our cause in America at this time is to bring forth our people, which was robbed by our slave masters back from the 18th and the 17th centuries. And we come now to redeem them through the power of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie. And I, true just man, is in this country to see that all democracy and all demonical spirit that is in this world be completely destroyed down under our feet through His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. He is the first creation birth from in centuries past. He is the foundation of creation. He is the Riftif Tafarai Buchananai, first name. He is now the precious ointment. He is the living and true King, creator, divine objectives of our present days, and will be forever and ever our King and Lord and Creator forever. All people, not Rastas alone. For the whites, for the blacks, and for the Indians, and for everyone that I know upon earth, His Majesty is their powerhouse. He is the King, He is the ruler, He is the divine objectives, and there is no other than He, Rastafari. Knowing that His Imperial Majesty, H.I.M., I have to worship Him in truth and righteousness. For He is no other name than that can secure man's subjection from sin and condemnation. So and I represent our Father as Rastas. So and I give in thanks annual for such fundamental reasoning that God had given unto I. True love, true word, true sound, true power. True earthquake, true lightning, true thunder. Storm, cyclone, tidal wave, and all tempestuous, roaring elements from creation to destroy the wicked nation and set Rastaman free for redemption, which is now. And I give thanks and praise for thy holiness unto eternity. Jah Rastafari, His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, I stand first. Thankful in reverence every time.
Rasta high. I get a yasti high, who high. Yang side and I yasti high, who. heard the shepherd calling. I lead you to the path of righteousness. The Rastafari thy shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to rest up in green pastures. He lead us by the river of righteousness by his name's sake. Though he walk through the valley of shadow of death, thou shalt not fear. High. The sheep heard the shepherd calling. The Rastafari bring back his own. But there was 99 in the shepherd's tent. One stray and gone away. The sheep heard the shepherd say, come to Zion, everything is ready. Oh, blessed Redeemer, King Creator. The only human mechanic, the Almighty. The invisible, visible. Without father, without mother, yet father, yet mother. The first.
Eli Jah Rastafari, foundation of creation. I know history has proven and showed that Ethiopia is a cradle of civilization. Ethiopia is the incubator of the earth where life has first started to exist from. And I also know Ethiopia as our ancient Christian kingman from the year 4475 BC. That's before Christ. Before any Western side ever knew anything of civilization or know anything of Christianity. And I know even Revelation 5 has shown upon his vesture and upon his ties. It was written, Kings of kings and Lords of lords. There were none before him, and there shall be none after. For he is the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. Eli Selassie, he is also the fullness of King Solomon, the returned Messiah to earth this day. For in prophecy I showed you that in this day he shall come with this name, that is so terrible and dreadful, Rastafari. That's what the world heard. I have the fullness of the truth of creation, that Rastafari lives and reigns forever and evermore. One black love, His Majesty is the creator for the earth. And I know that prophecy has shown that anyone who really have the Ark of the Covenant is really creation, paymaster, and earth rightful owner. It has shown that His Majesty is the monument, the Bible owner, creation, paymaster. But then first, I know that Rastafari is really the head of every fullness, truth and right. We know that even His Majesty had even set up the Declaration of Human Rights and even fulfilled the League of Nations, which the whole Western world had found themselves guilty within the Muslim war and Muslim attack that Christian kingdom Ethiopia. For Italy said without they have the ruling power of Ethiopia, then they could never rule the earth. And we know that His Majesty set up the League of Nations, which they all break away now, come to really form this United Nation. It's the same charter of His Majesty's League of Nations. They have been used right now within the United Nations. So we know that He is the rightful ruler by sovereign right. His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. Give thanks and praise unto the Most High every time.
Written in his book. The radiant rainbow royal circle throne. Blood, gold and green. Elohim, Elohim. Rejoice, God bring back His own.
give up until the soul keep not back. Send my sons from far and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Even everyone that is called by my name. Righteousness shall cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. Golden Jubilee. Multitude in the valley of decision. For a day will I be with them for my people, said Rastafari.
Yes, Haile I, Selassie I, is the owner, founder of sun, moon and stars, man, woman and children, green herb, heat, air and water, and all creeping things upon the face of this earth that have breath, those that fly within the midst of heaven, and those that move within the great and small waters, and those that are hidden from the face of man, internally live. Jah Rastafari, let all living things call him. He is without father, he is without mother, without beginning of days nor end of time. Hebrews 7 declare it biblically. No descent, having neither beginning of days, he'll priest Melchizedek, yet father, yet mother, without void, without form, yet void, yet form, all void and form, unsearchable, coming through lineage, through even Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago, coming through Judah, who prove a better testament than priest Melchizedek, as it is written in same Hebrews 7, coming through Acts 2, 19 verse, as it is said, men and brethren, let me freely speak of the patriarch David, who is now dead and buried, but his sepulchre is here with us now. Understand that? And through the lineage, according to the flesh, through David's line, Christ must return. Haile Selassie is greater David, greater son, who stand to rule and reign worldwide. Unfathomable, the master builder of creation, the Almighty in person, natural man. Haile Selassie is a title given to Rastafari. Malachi first declare it. The heathen shall shook at his great and dreadful name. Ras mean king. Tafari mean head creator. He is redeemer, king, creator in bliss, return to reign forever. Jeremiah here declare it. I am black. Astonishment is being taken upon me. I am one forever. So this one is one. So Haile Selassie, the mighty, is one. One heart, one love, one moon, one earth, one life. So there must be one God, the Almighty Jah Rastafari. I was being taken away as captive. Surely, from a long, long time ago, we tried the I still was in Egypt and just bust the scene too with Naya Bing the music through the temple of Moses, and man walk on dry ground. Jah and do it again. This day I shall bring the captivity in this decade of Judah and Jerusalem, Ethiopia, when all eyes shall see and know that Haile Selassie, Jah Rastafari, reign forever and forever. For he angel is coming, falling down before him. He touched lightning and it scorched. He rebuked the wind and chastised thunder. He's almighty in supremacy, ruleth among the mighties. Him alone, the only international field marshal general. Haile Selassie, Jah Rastafari, to the world. Sila. Martin Luther King. Your name will ever ring. Dr. Martin Luther King. Cry, angels sing. Your dream has come to pass. These days we pray and fast. He was being assassinated. Dr. Martin Luther King. Your name will ever ring. Dr. Martin Luther King. while angels sing. A devoted man of God. He used the word just like a rod. Teaches people how to fight. Oh yes, he was a blazing light. Of all that said and done, win the war without a gun. Dr. Martin Luther King. Your name will ever ring. Dr. Martin Luther King. Wisdom cry and angels sing. Brilliant king of Africa. Humble servant of Jaja. Such a noble black man. True born African. The monarch shook the universe. Quench the angry burning thirst. Dr. Martin Luther King. Your name will ever ring. Dr. Martin Luther King. Wisdom cry and angels sing. Bring his people from the slum. Lead the blind, speak for the dumb. Fourth of April, 1968. The king was being assassinated.
We are here to speak to the world tonight and today and every day, present, past, and future, telling the world of the truth and the rights that existed in this earth long, long, long time before miseries came to the earth. Every time that a creator trod the earth, or the creator trod to a certain structure, there is always skepticism and hism, and people saying, is this the God? How he's walking on earth in the days of Christ, when he was among the people healing them and doing good for them. They said, he does good, but is he the Son of God? And they stoned him. And he said, is it for my good works? Why you stone me? And they said, no, but because thou art a man and make it thyself God. Jah Rastafari trod through this earth and been trotting through this earth for many, many thousands of years. Long before there was America, when there was no England, no France, no Scotland, no Wales, when the earth didn't have any name, when it was peaceful and loving. Jah Rastafari has been trotting through different structures. And the Creator traveled through many, many names from different times, and he come in different forms. And before we go further, the word Haile Selassie is an Amharic word, which means power of the Holy Trinity. And the power of the Holy Trinity must be God. And he's also the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah and the light of the world. So there's no argument about that. I don't have to argue that. But I would like to tell the world why the Rastafarian is here and what they're here to do. Many thousand years ago, or many hundreds of years ago, there was no black people in the Western Hemisphere. They were all in their peaceful habitation in the land of their forefathers. We were very kind people, and people who were helpless, we tried to show them love and to show them civilization, because civilization didn't flow up the River Nile. It flowed down the River Nile through Kemet and all those places. And we welcome them and show them love. And they come into our country, spy out our country, and then later on invade our country, take away our people and take them to the Western world and have them sit in captivity. But little did they know that when they were taking our people to the West, they were taking the Rastafarians as well. Because we came to the Western world in our forefathers' loins, to be born at this time, to stand up for the rights of our people. And we are here mystically and mysteriously. Now, many people say the Rastafarian movement was started in 1930 because that's what they think. But the Rastafarian movement been going on the slave plantation from all those slave rebellions coming up. It was the spirit of the Rastafarian at an earlier stage. And it come right up to Marcus Garvey. And then Marcus Garvey light a torch in Jamaica and it burned in America. And it burned all over Europe. And it also light up Africa, that Africa become independent. And Marcus Garvey was also a Rastafarian at an earlier stage. And so is many other brethren who you may see they don't have a locks, they have a beard. Or they may not have, but the Rasta is a conception. What you think. So you can have Rasta working in this place and you don't even know, because the Spirit of God just take him up and make him do the Rasta work. A bird can fly, come in this place, and it's just Rastafari flying that bird to do a work. And we must not limit the power of Rastafari. And when we think of Rastafari, we mustn't think of him in Ethiopia alone. Because if God will only control Ethiopia, what would happen to us in America? What would happen to the people in England? How would we be able to breathe fresh air all around the world? Rastafari is everywhere, because God is an international God. So we want you to understand the cause of the Rastafarian, that we are here to make the world a better place through music, through songs, through love, through unity. And we will do all the good we can to all the people we can, in every way we can, as long as we can. So I would have to say, free the people. Africa for the African, those at home and those abroad. When that is accomplished, then we'll burn all guns and all evil weapons and bring back the earth to a peaceful place as it was. And the springs of joy and happiness and kindness and love and unity shall flow across the universe as the waters cover the sea. Because the peace and love must cover this earth as the waters cover the seas. In the name of Jah Rastafari. Peace.
Jah
Rastafari.
light of creation. captivity won't back to Zion. Like within the St. Peter's Basilica. Burn the Vatican to ashes.
Give thanks and praise unto Jah, Rastafari. And I trod in the United States to help my sister to tell them about Rastafari, because I know that Rastafari is the true and living Jah. Jah come to conquer death and hell. Jah can't die. People says Emperor Haile Selassie die. I know it is a lie, because this man come this time to conquer death and hell. He coming from the line of Melchizedek, coming right down to David and Bathsheba. And no Satan nor devil could never sit in the throne of David. Nothing can go like that. Because right now, they say he's not on his throne, and I know no one can sit in the throne. Everyone have to just keep watching the throne, although they are stealing what they can get out of it. But I know they can't sit in the throne of David. And I represent King Alpha, Queen Omega, this day. For Jah loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwelling of Jacob. And I know King Haile Selassie is the ancient king of Iration. And Lord King Alpha and Queen Omega, the beginning without an end, the first and forever. Prince and princess must stride out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hand unto Jah, and until this day and forever. Give thanks and praise unto Jah Rastafari.
I know guys is I see. Na yakaya sa yob.
I have earned sign your lifestyle.
Unto the Most High, I say,
Ancient Aya Congo, ayo been in Ayasta University.
Yakin I sign your lifestyle like this.
Ang say bin na yan ayasya.
Iba yang sayasi. Ainya layang. Ayasta yul.
Yo bin na yan sign your lifestyle like.
Love is so open, just a
And you're not feeling nice, how are you?
Did you not hear? Do you not know? Really about 4 mindsets ago. Time warp when you shoulda know. The righteous gravitation try to heights ago. Based on my roots, capable. The national hustle not feel lose the more. Rasta man stay sharp, but not from intro. Just dwell it among the rebellions. 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 Rebellion. Yeah. Me love me onion in the skin. Circle dove, yeah, Rastafari grow. One piece and see herb, you never go for wish you never know the things you are gonna know. Never wish we get up on the ganja miller. Right in on the earth of the black Congo. Right in on the earth, the black Congo. Right in on the heart, the black Congo. Just dwell it among the rebellion. The rebellion. Just dwell it among the rebellion. Ooh, something real, not slow, shallow. Rejoice, yo, live up, Joe. Rastafari for show, for show, for show, for show. Hey, 2 songs, 3 joints ago. Only judge I know what bring the tempo, so the right black nation never left the floor, never diss the floor. The black Congo, the black Congo, just dwell it among the rebellion. London don't know, the black Congo, Milan don't know, the black Congo, Venice don't know, the black Congo, the whole of them don't know, the black Congo, Carbanario, the whole of them know, the black Congo. Did you not hear? Do you not know? Really about 4 mind states ago. Time warp when you shoulda know. The righteous gravitation try to heights ago. The face of my roots, Capabrilla, Capabrilla, Capabrilla. Just dwell it among the rebellion. The rebellion. Just dwell it among the rebellion. You know how long them a try fool, hey. Why watch out? About 4,000 years of theft on them. Venice done do it and remember the first Punic War. Hey, Carthage, remember, remember. Hey, the naughty head them and the kind. The money, man not say fi bring it back. The money with the sign of the liar. The liar. Remember you. True now. Yeah. I'm not faithful, let not hear, do you not know? All about 4 mind states ago. Time warp when you show that no. The righteous gravitational to Jah it ago. Hey, Jah dwell it among the rebellion. 2 songs, 3 joints ago. Only Jah know what bring the temper so. The right black nation never taste the flow. No against the flow. Never left the flow. Jah dwell it among the rebellion.
Well, in other news this evening, the St. Elizabeth police have seized 2,000 pounds of ganja and have arrested a bus driver in connection with the find. The ganja has a street value of 8 million Jamaican dollars. Well, the police have not yet revealed the identity of the bus driver, which since the bust, which took place on Monday. The CVM Live has, however, learned that he is not from St. Elizabeth, where the Toyota Coaster bus he was driving was intercepted along the Barbary Hall main road. Our news team understands that the police were carrying out anti-narcotics operations in the area when the white and brown coaster was stopped. During a search of the vehicle, 38 knitted bags were found to contain vegetable matter, which was confirmed to be ganja. The rectangular-shaped packages were stacked between the seats of the bus. The suspect in his 50s was arrested on reasonable suspicion of breaches of the Dangerous Drugs Act, and the vehicle was seized and the contraband confiscated to be used as evidence in the case. Sources say the man was traveling alone.
Pit of hell. This is what the devil is using to destroy marriages, to destroy women, to destroy the sexual relationship. And one of the problems, is that they are sitting down among us and saying that they are victims. Third wave feminism is one of the most evil ideologies that has come on the face of it. This abortion thing is because of third wave feminism. Original feminists were not that way.
He says global pro-abortion activists also want medical doctors who refuse to perform abortions to be prosecuted. Dr. West says Christians opposed to abortion are being labeled as being mentally ill.
It was a psychologist who coined the word homophobia. Now, in medical school, they teach you that a phobia is a type of neurosis. It's a mental illness. You're mentally ill. And it means that Christians really now have the neurosis. So now the church has been labeled, and now people are devising things called church traumatic syndrome. And they are now creating terms like church-associated traumatic syndrome, meaning that people who are associated with church are traumatized by the church. Don't laugh at these things, because in 10 years' time, you're going to find that we are labeled as mentally ill and deserving of being locked up.
It's why Dr. West says the Christian community must now stand against what he says is the devil and his angels. He was speaking yesterday at a Jamaica Cause anti-abortion symposium at the Jamaica Conference Center in Kingston. In other news now, the legal team for former Moravian Church minister Dr. Canute Thompson is vowing to collect every cent of the $16 million the Supreme Court has ordered co-founder of the Tambourine Army, Latoya Nugent, to pay their client. The ruling came today following the conclusion of a defamation suit lawyers for Dr. Thompson filed against Ms. Nugent. Abka Fitzhenley reports.
In 2017, Miss Nugent, who is otherwise known as Stella, used social media to make certain allegations against Dr. Thompson. The allegations were made at the height of the underage girls' sex scandal, which engulfed the Moravian Church in 2016 and 2017. One of the attorneys for Dr. Thompson, Carlton Williams, told our news center today that the Supreme Court has ordered Nugent to pay his client.
The defamatory material that was published by the defendant in this matter seriously damaged his reputation, as the judge found, and as a result she awarded him damages in the sum of $16 million, with costs, of course, to the attorneys who represented our client. I also should point out that I got the judgment this morning, but part of the trial, at the trial itself, appearing were attorneys Michael Hilton QC and Mark Williams, instructed by Williams, McCoy and Palmer.
Mr. Williams says Ms. Nugent did not file a defense.
Not only did they not file a defense on her behalf, but in response to our letter when we wrote to her demanding an apology and for her to withdraw the defamatory material from the media, she wrote back I would say cursing enough, and indicating that she would never do such a thing. She had no intention. She used expletives in no uncertain terms, and the judge took that in consideration too.
The attorney is vowing to collect every dollar from Miss Nugent.
Our client is pleased that he has been exonerated. The defamatory material had, as I have said, seriously damaged him. It was widely publicized, and I think he intends to try and recover the damages that have been awarded. I think he's deserving of it, and we're going to do our best to see whether we can collect every cent of it.
Mr. Williams says Justice Audrey Lindo said she'll make available her written judgment in a few days.
Our client, Dr. Canute Thompson, is a man of tremendous reputation. He is a well-known Caribbean educator, writer, and in fact a management consultant. He lectures at the University of the West Indies, primarily in the field of education, and as you have said, he is a minister of religion.
Abka Fitz-Henley for Nationwide News.
And that's it for the news at 6. I'm Nika Lewis. Do stay with us. Sports is next.
A special good afternoon to the leader of the party and the future Prime Minister of Jamaica, Comrade Peter.
This Honorable House, call to resume. Call of the roll.
Mr. Witter? Yes. Mr. Samuda? Mr. Olness? Dr. Clark? Mr. Shaw? Dr. Chang? Mr. Montague? Ms. Grange? Mr. Henry? Mr. Bartlett? Mr. Mackenzie? Mr. Chuck? Mr. Vaz? Mr. Warmington, Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Hutchinson, Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahuford, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Green, Mr. Terrelong, Mr. Main, Mr. R. Scott, Mr. Azan, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Miss Daly, Mr. Daly, Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Fagan, Dr. Ferguson, Mr. Golding, Dr. Guy, Miss Hannah, Mr. Hales, Mrs. Holness, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Kelly, Dr. McNeil, Miss Nita, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Pickersgill, Mr. Redman, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Robinson, okay, Mr. Stewart, Reverend Thwaites, Mrs. Vaz, Mrs. Vaz, Mr. Dwayne Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, and Mr. Wright.
Mr. Speaker, I first of all would like to welcome our visitors in the gallery, members of the diplomatic corps, and a number of our government agencies that are represented here as well. Some members of my constituency have not arrived yet, but I want to acknowledge them. And my daughters, two of my daughters are here. A doctor and the director of a company, right? My wife and our little 10-year-old daughter are unavoidably absent overseas, so we offer their apologies. Well, Mr. Speaker, I had the very great privilege and honor during last year's budget, I think perhaps having set a record of speaking 3 times, because I opened and closed the debate of the budget, and then I opened and closed. So it's really 4 times. It's not 3 speeches. It was 4 speeches last year. Happily, it's reduced to 1 this year. And I want to, having served now for a year as minister in this new portfolio, I sometimes have thoughts as to whether I should thank the Prime Minister for having put me in this position, because I can assure you it's been a very challenging role. But it is my honor, Prime Minister, to continue to serve, and that it's rooted in the fact that I'm a member of a team and an administration that is growing the economy, creating a new Jamaica, and increasing the prosperity of our people. I'm proud and honored also to represent over 230,000, I think approaching 240,000 small farmers in this country, the over 20,000 fisher folk, thousands of entrepreneurs in the micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, as well as our large business enterprises, our manufacturers, exporters, traders, and investors that keep Jamaica growing. Mr. Speaker, the role of government in engendering growth and prosperity is crystal clear. And so my ministry, and I won't keep repeating it because it's too long, it's going to take up too much time, under our watch and in collaboration with my colleague ministers, Hutchinson and Green, along with the dedicated members of staff, led by the Permanent Secretary, will continue under this administration to create the enabling environment for individuals and businesses to thrive and create wealth for themselves, their families, communities, and their country. Mr. Speaker, I'm buoyed today by the fact that Jamaica has been hailed as the best country to do business in the Caribbean for the 4th consecutive year and 10th in the Latin American region, according to Forbes magazine. The home of the world's best performing stock market, according to Bloomberg. And the 6th easiest country in which to start a business, according to Doing Business report. Mr. Speaker, the expansion of our economy is palpable. My script says you can almost feel. I've taken out the word almost. You can feel it. We have attained macroeconomic stability with incrementally improving levels of gross domestic product, even while several fledgling industries find their footing and inspire further growth in the economy. I can boldly attest to the fact that Jamaica is on a path of economic growth and has been so for the last few years. Signal, look at what has happened, the unprecedented decline in the unemployment rate from 13.2% when we took over as government, and it is now at a record low of 8%, Mr. Speaker. 8%. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I can say without any sphere of contradiction that working closely with my colleagues, especially at the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, led by the Most Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, we are on the road to greater prosperity. There ain't no stopping us now, and there will be no turning back. We intend to grow our industries, the agricultural industry, the micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, the manufacturing and services sectors. We all know the journey along the road to prosperity is not without its challenges. It's not an easy road. It is one that requires commitment, hard work, and resilience. And it requires the kind of resilience that defines the character of the Jamaican farmer, for instance. Whether he works his banana walk in the cool hills of Portland, his vegetable plot on the dry plains of St. Elizabeth, or the potato and yam fields of Manchester and Charlotte. This resilience, Mr. Speaker, finds fodder and nurture in the creative will of our small businesses, business owners, and entrepreneurs. For the calendar year 2018, preliminary estimates from Statin show that the quantity of food imported declined by 5.1% when compared with food imports in 2017. That's a good sign. Good sign. There was a decline in the imports. It cannot be lost on us that overall growth for the agriculture, forestry, and fishing industry stood at 4.2%, while contributing approximately 7.2% to the gross domestic product. Domestic crop production rebounded with a growth of 7.2% when compared with the previous year, Mr. Speaker. There was an overall growth rate of 0.2%, modest as it is in the manufacturing sector. An increase which was based the previous year was a negative growth, primarily on the food and beverages sub-industries. This sends a clear message to us of the very serious linkage between agriculture and industry and the need to further develop the value chain. In fact, I'm going to be spending some time on this issue because I think it is important that we concentrate on the vision that the Prime Minister had when he established the merger of industry with agriculture. There is a natural linkage, and what we have to do is to make sure that that linkage in a real and practical way becomes manifested. Mr. Speaker, in every challenge there is a seed of opportunity, and agriculture is the seed to Jamaica's economic prosperity. In addition to the agricultural sector, in this portfolio, for the main productive sectors of the economy, we have the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, Fisheries. We also have portfolio responsibility for the main productive sectors of the economy. We take this very seriously, Mr. Speaker, bearing in mind that these goods-producing sectors account for some 45% of the labor force, while contributing over 33% to our annual gross domestic product. We are aligned, umbilically aligned, Mr. Speaker, to the country's growth agenda and the national growth inducement strategy. So even as we assess the achievements of the past, we are focused on the future. We are focused on inducing growth. We are bent on attracting more and more investment, and we shall be moving and are moving forward with prosperity. Let's talk a little bit about investment. Our lead investment and promotions agency, JAMPRO, reports that preliminary data show that in fiscal year 18-19, the value of local and foreign direct investments by their clients was US $545 million. The number of jobs created by JAMPRO clients was 14,000, exceeding the target of 14,401, exceeding the target of 14,156. The value of export shipments by JAMPRO clients was US $762 million, some 43% above the target, Mr. Speaker. In this fiscal year, JAMPRO will continue to connect both local and international private sector members to opportunities in the economy, in the mining and quarrying, energy, manufacturing, business process outsourcing, and the hospitality sectors. And I wish to join today in offering our congratulations to the success stories in several of these industries, with, of course, tourism being the poster child. And I wonder what award the minister got last week. Mr. Speaker, in the 2018-19 fiscal year, the Export-Import Bank disbursed some $9.4 billion to the productive sector, 72% of which went towards providing financing to the medium, small, and micro enterprise sector, its highest ever contribution to the growth and development of small and medium enterprises in Jamaica. This fiscal year, an additional $400 million has been committed by the bank for investment in the sector, and this is growth-inducing investment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Exim Bank is projecting to provide in excess of $9.4 billion in credit this fiscal year, but is hopeful of being able to increase this target with increased capital injections to facilitate export growth for new and existing clients. And I wish to take note of the innovative program whereby the Tourism Enhancement Fund has provided funds for the tourism sector on lend through the Exim Bank at the reasonable interest rate of 4%. 4% interest rate. Mr. Speaker, our partners in the private sector and stakeholders in the private sector are also to be commended, some of whom are here with us today, and I welcome you. They are using more local produce in baking and brewing, expanding the export of fresh produce and manufactured goods, and continue to grow their businesses by investing in Jamaica. The role of the financial sector in lowering interest rates and making loans more accessible must also be commended, Mr. Speaker. Even
The British capital, waking to day 4 of a nationwide lockdown, and news that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has tested positive for the coronavirus.
I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus, that's to say a temperature and a persistent cough.
He wasn't alone. The health secretary was soon tweeting that he too had tested positive, and the government's chief medical advisor is also now showing symptoms. That left it up to another senior minister to answer questions about a government potentially not practicing what it preached.
The virus does not discriminate. We are all at risk, and that is why it is so important that we practice social distancing measures.
Johnson appeared in Parliament on Wednesday. His diagnosis follows that of Prince Charles, last seen in public with the heir to the British throne on March 9th. Johnson delivered his last weekly briefing to the Queen by telephone, and Buckingham Palace has said she remains in good health. The news comes as Britain is bracing itself for what it fears will be a sharp rise in the number of cases, the pain of other nations spurring preparations. In Spain, quarantine means the dead are often buried alone, the living unable to visit those sick in hospital.
People get sick alone, and they die alone, and they are buried alone, and you cannot do anything.
In Italy, more than 900 people have died over the past 24 hours alone. Today, the Pope, a lone and dramatic figure in St. Peter's Square, delivered a global blessing. For weeks now, it has been evening, he said. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented. It was time, he said, to row together.
Tonight, Ireland became the latest country to impose a lockdown. The Prime Minister warning that intensive care units could be at capacity within days. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
The National Pledge of Jamaica.
Before God and all mankind, I pledge the love and the loyalty of my heart,
the wisdom and the courage of my mind,
the strength and vigor of my body.
In the service of my fellow citizens, I promise to stand up
for justice, brotherhood,
and peace, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may honor God, increase in beauty,
fellowship, and prosperity,
and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race.
Hello and welcome to BBC World News. Let's return to that breaking news from Brazil. The President, Jair Bolsonaro, says that he has tested positive for coronavirus. He says he began feeling unwell on Sunday, had a fever and was suffering some pain. He then took a test and that was confirmed positive. Mr. Bolsonaro has long played down the danger of COVID-19, saying it's like a little flu. His country is the epicentre of the pandemic in Latin America, with more than 1.6 million infections. Well, just a few minutes ago, the World Health Organization's Executive Director, Mike Ryan, has been speaking about Brazil and the President.
The virus doesn't really know who we are, whether we're prince or pauper. We're equally vulnerable. And I think what it really highlights is our collective vulnerability to this disease. So we wish Mr. Bolsonaro and his family the best in this regard. It is a time in any Brazil is a great nation that faces a difficult task and a difficult time.
Well, let's go straight back to our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Camilla Motta, covering this story for us. And Camilla, I know it's only recently broken, but the immediate reaction where you are?
Well, some people actually were shocked that it took so long for Mr. Bolsonaro to get infected, since he's been not following the social distancing guidelines. He usually goes out on weekends to greet his supporters, and it's really hard to see him wearing a mask. So sometimes some people were shocked that it took so long for him to actually get infected.
Just take us through the details that we learned, because we're looking at pictures. He gave a pretty extensive, long interview in Brasilia, giving the details, telling us that he was taking that controversial drug as a treatment. And then he concluded that interview by taking the mask off and continuing to talk to reporters, even though he's tested positive.
Yes, just a few minutes ago, Bolsonaro was talking to reporters in front of the presidential palace, and that's when he said that he started experiencing the symptoms on Sunday, and that right away he started to take hydroxychloroquine, this drug used to treat patients with malaria, a really controversial subject here in Brazil, because there's no hard evidence that hydroxychloroquine actually works for COVID-19 patients. But Mr. Bolsonaro is a really big enthusiast of hydroxychloroquine, as Mr. Donald Trump also is.
And of course, as Brazil and the president has pushed to open up, we've seen just a huge number of confirmed cases as the backdrop. Where is the Brazilian public in all of this?
Well, Brazilians have been in favor of social distancing and quarantine measures since the beginning. That's what the polls have been showing. But it's been almost 4 months now that some cities have been in quarantine. So some people say that was about time for some cities to reopen, because the economic toll was starting to become unbearable for some families.
Camilla, thanks very much for the latest from there. Let's continue, though, with this. Let's speak to Professor Anthony Pereira. He's the director of the Brazil Institute at King's College London. And what is your take? Was this pretty much inevitable, do you think?
It was likely, given President Bolsonaro's personal behavior. But I think it's going to raise some interesting questions, perhaps some awkward questions, about the president's behavior, his approach to coronavirus, but also his foreign policy. So as your correspondent said, he's been going around Brasilia without a mask, greeting supporters. So, he was risking contracting coronavirus. Looks like now he has. I think it'll also, you see a lot of the playbook of Donald Trump in the president's actions. He's been criticizing the governors over lockdown. He's been promoting hydrochloroquine and so on. And people will be wondering whether easing out of lockdown while cases are going up is really the right strategy. And then there's evidence, although we don't have direct evidence of this, but there's suggestions that he may have contracted this coronavirus at a July 4th event at the residence of the U.S. ambassador. Certainly there are pictures from that event where people are not social distancing and they're not wearing masks. And that would just sort of reinforce these questions about whether the kind of lockstep that the Bolsonaro government is in with the Trump administration is really the best foreign policy for Brazil.
And just to remind any viewers watching who may not be familiar with every twist and turn when it comes to Brazil and Bolsonaro, at pretty much every stage of this pandemic, he's been resistant, hasn't he, to the conventional opinion, to medical opinion, to scientific opinion, downplaying the risk, describing it as flu, as I said there in the introduction, going against governors, firing health ministers.
Yes, he's gone through 2 health ministers. So he fired Luis Mandetta in April. Taish he undermined, and Taish resigned in May. And now he's got an interim health minister who's a general who's doesn't have medical qualifications. And I think unlike a lot of leaders, we saw at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, a lot of governments taking positions which they later regretted. So in this country, people were talking about herd immunity and not locking down. The Trump administration changed tack. But the thing is, a lot of those leaders did change when they got evidence and when they were pushed by public health experts. Bolsonaro has been one of the few leaders that really hasn't budged. He's really doubled down on his initial position, which was that it's not very serious and that people have to just carry on, have to go out to work, and that if you lock down, if you have strict quarantine measures, you're letting the coronavirus defeat you in a way.
And yet you now have a backdrop of 1.6 million confirmed cases in that country, and that's only confirmed cases. The best bet is it's significantly higher than that, which brings me to the final point, which is, at what point does it come, or does it not come, do you think, that fundamentally there's any sort of thought about a change of strategy? The World Health Organization saying only the last hour or so, this is a pandemic of staggering proportions, and they're most worried about Latin America.
That's the concern is well placed. I think the good thing for Brazil is that it is a federal system, and the Supreme Court in April upheld the principle that mayors and governors have authority with public health matters. There's good capacity in terms of medical research and public health expertise in Brazil, and where there are surges and where there are problems, local officials have the authority, despite what the president's doing, to reimpose lockdowns or to suggest new patterns of behavior. So I don't think the situation is as dire as one might think from looking at the actions of the president himself. But what's been lacking in Brazil is central coordination, information, getting people to coalesce, deciding on a strategy together. That's been missing, and probably will remain a missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle in Brazil, even though the president now appears to have coronavirus.
I suppose in that sense, it's another parallel with the US, with the states enabled to do different to what the White House and the federal administration is actually doing. We'll leave it there. Anthony Pereira, thank you so much for that insight and that analysis. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Champion sound.
Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Dr. Tufton.
You did. Champion sound. champion sound.
Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. The first batch of 200 crew members from the Adventure of the Seas started to disembark this morning. Now, according to the government, the crew members from Royal Caribbean will be tested, then moved to the Grand Bahia Principe to await their COVID-19 test results. Our reporter Anthony Lugg has been tracking this story and joins us live from Falmouth with the latest. Anthony.
Thank you, Vashan. I'm going to remove my mask for the duration of this broadcast. And I would like to say that today is what some of these ship workers aboard the Royal Caribbean Adventures of the Seas cruise ship are describing as a happy day. That's because after months of being at the seas, some were finally able to put their feet on Jamaica's soil. Now with me today, I have Mr. Errol Green. That's the Regional Director for the Western Regional Health Authority. Hi, Mr. Green. How is everything going today?
Everything is going according to plan. We plan to start processing the first 200 at 0800 hours. We started at 8, and I'm happy to report that at 11:45, all 200 passengers that were selected for processing have been processed, and they are now getting ready to be on their way to the Bahia Principe Hotel, where they will be, where they'll be staying.
As it relates to the test and the swabs that have been taking place, talk to me a little bit about that, please.
Well, all 200 of them have been tested. The tests have been sent to the lab for processing, and we expect that we'll get those results certainly within the next 24 to 48 hours. But everyone who has disembarked the ship has been tested.
All right. Can you say when the next 200 will be? I know you said 48 to 72 hours, but which day exactly are we looking at?
That is a logistical matter that I would rather not address at this time, but we'll be moving expeditiously to get all 1,404 passengers off the ship.
All right. Thank you very much. That's Mr. Errol Green, Regional Director for the Western Regional Health Authority. Now, we've also been informed that there is some tension aboard the cruise ship. That again is because some of the workers aboard the cruise ship are insisting that they do not want to go to the Grand Bahia Principe Hotel. Here's a voice note we received.
Hear our voice, know that we are going to protest to stay on the ship if we don't get solid and clear information and what will be done to us, because we have come this far. We don't want to make another step that's going to jeopardize our freedom of getting home sooner. We are way above stress limit right now, so we need clarity so we can stay calm and believe in the process and do it the right way. Otherwise, we're going to protest and we're going to stay on the ship.
Thank you. So you heard it from Mr. Errol Green, Regional Director for the Western Regional Health Authority. All 200 passengers who were slated to get off the ship today have been processed and are being prepared to make their way into the Grand Bahia Principe Hotel. The security forces are here ensuring that everything goes smoothly. We will be monitoring the situation here in Falmouth and will provide you with update in subsequent newscasts.
All right, thank you very much. That was our reporter Anthony Lugg reporting there that the first 200 crew members from Adventures of the Sea, they've already started to disembark, and we'll continue to monitor that story for you. Meanwhile, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa-McKenzie, says the first batch of ship workers to disembark included those considered a high priority. Now, for those Jamaicans who will be in home quarantine, the authorities are planning to group them according to parishes. And the Chief Medical Officer has explained why a pregnant woman on board the Adventures of the Seas was not medically evacuated. After the ship arrived on Monday, she was transported to the Cornwall Regional Hospital, but the Health Ministry has refused to give details, citing patient confidentiality. Dr. Bisesa Mackenzie says the decision was made after careful evaluation by medical professionals on the ship and on land.
The information that I have was that the condition of the person would allow for the ship to reach here safely. Of course, it is always a medical evacuation itself comes with risk, and one has to weigh the importance of what is the intervention that would be put in place, that needed to be put in place immediately, that would warrant the evacuation. And on review of the medical report, it was agreed that the person, the condition could have, was stable enough to allow for the ship to arrive and for the safe disembarkation of the person.
Meanwhile, more stories from the families awaiting their loved ones who are on the ship. Here's Anthony Lugg.
We're happy.
Tanika Gale jumps for joy hours after the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Adventures of the Seas.
Well, we want to continue with breaking news. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife Sophie Gregoire Trudeau are in self-isolation. The PMO says Gregoire Trudeau has been tested for COVID-19 and is awaiting those results. Chief Political Correspondent David Aiken joins us now from Ottawa. Good afternoon, David. Obviously, an unfolding situation developing right now. What more do we know at this point?
Yeah, we just learned about this about a half an hour ago, and you're right. So Sophie Gregoire Trudeau was overseas in the UK. She had a speaking engagement there, and when she returned, she started to develop flu-like symptoms, and she has been tested now for COVID-19, and she is in self-isolation. Her husband, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is not feeling any symptoms, but he too now is in self-isolation, and he's going to work from home. And of course, this was a big week for the Prime Minister. He's hosting all of the premiers and territorial leaders, some of whom are already in town. Premier Kenny, for example, from Alberta, is giving a speech right now, just a couple of blocks away. So the in-person part of the First Minister's meeting has been canceled. So that's a big development, obviously. The Prime Minister is going to be talking with premiers by phone, by video conference. We're not exactly sure of the shape of that First Minister's meeting, but the Prime Minister right now, again, showing no symptoms. He's feeling fine, but he is in self-isolation. And his wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, she was feeling sick. She's had the COVID-19 test, and we understand that at this point in time, you can turn a COVID-19 test around in about 6 hours. So we may know by end of day if Sophie is in fact infected with it, and that, of course, would change perhaps the way the Prime Minister and his household are sort of being operated. But that's the situation that we have right now. And let's not forget, we have some other politicians who are self-isolation. The Natural Resources Minister, Seamus O'Regan, a couple of days ago. Mary Ng, who is from the Markham area, riding in Markham. She's the International Trade Minister, announcing yesterday she's in self-isolation. And then just before this news broke, the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, saying he woke up not feeling very well. He's called his doctor. His doctor says, you don't sound like you've got the flu or COVID-19. You got something else. But nonetheless, Jagmeet Singh is staying home today, too.
So you can imagine a lot of people on Sophie Gregoire's staff and the Prime Minister's staff retracing the steps just in case. Let's get to the First Minister's meeting that you mentioned. Part of it is canceled, the first part. What does this mean? Because this meeting is really focused or intended to focus on the response to this pandemic. Elaborate on that.
Sort of. There was obviously the ministers were going to talk about the short-term crisis, COVID-19, and the economic fallout, and some longer-term issues. Doug Ford, of course, Ontario's premier, is in town, and he brought a whole pile of ministers with him. They had arranged some one-on-one meetings with their counterparts. For instance, Health Minister Christine Elliott is here. She's going to meet with Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu. Doug Ford had a press conference this morning. You've probably been reporting on this already, in which he has his asks of the federal government. Infrastructure, speeded up approvals for infrastructure. He wants more money for long-term health care funding, and he's got some issues around economic migration. Ford is still going to pursue that agenda, presumably. He has a meeting a little later on this afternoon, a one-on-one with the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland. That had already been arranged, but he and the other premiers are not going to be in the same room now with just Justin Trudeau. Whether the premiers who are here decide to meet on their own, this is a developing situation. We're going to have to find out. Two premiers did not travel because of concerns of this virus. New Brunswick's Blaine Higgs stayed back in his province, told not to travel, and Yukon's Premier Sandy Silver, same thing. His public health officials saying, don't come. All the other premiers, though, were, except for Brian Pallister from Manitoba, he's got a budget today. All the others, though, were expected to be here in Ottawa to meet with the PM, but PM, he's staying at his place on the Governor General's property.
So just to recap the breaking news into the newsroom, that the Prime Minister is in self-isolation, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau in self-isolation, and we are just awaiting tests, and that could take, about 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours before we get results?
Ontario says that they can turn around a test if they had to in about 6 hours. For most people, it's a day, maybe 2 days, but, it's the wife of the Prime Minister. I'm sure they're going to put a little bit of speed on that.
David, always a pleasure. David Aiken joining us from Ottawa.
Where I belong.
Check it out, I.
West,
Sinaya.
But I know Indian.
No, I.
Then which country I belong?
Check it out now.
Watch out. I got choose my original players.
Same.
Try to find out what I is all about. In the meantime, Bella G and want some music for I.
Sounds of meditation. I'm on searching for origination.
Coming from the east, see that I know.
Real clean.
But in the east there's no Negro.
No, I.
Nigga. That I can't figure. West Indian.
Yes, I am.
With a G and want some more music.
Check it out, I.
Weird. I'm on remember land. When man used to act like man. They used to call I and I Ethiopian.
Yes, I am.
Clean, clean.
I will.
Surely I.
Sounds of meditation.
Truly
I'm
an North African. Where I belong?
Check it out, I.
West?
Sinaya.
But I know Indian.
No, I.
Then which country I belong?
Check it out now.
Watch out. I got trace my original players.
Same.
Try to find out what I is all about. In the meantime, Bella G and want some music for I. Sound of meditation.
Palace of Westminster awaited the arrival of Her Majesty the Queen. From this historic place, centre of the British Commonwealth of Free Peoples, has gone forth the pattern of parliaments, the Westminster model. In the chamber of the House of Lords were assembled the peers of the realm, their wives, and the ladies who are life peeresses. Facing them was the throne, soon to be occupied by the Queen. For this was the occasion of the state opening of Parliament. Through the royal gallery in stately procession came the gentlemen-at-arms. The Lord Great Chamberlain, the Marquis of Cholmondeley, received the imperial crown and proceeded to place it upon the table to await Her Majesty's entrance. That great servant of Queen and country in war and peace, Viscount Slim, received the sword of state. The cap of maintenance was to be borne by Lord Mills. Though we were privileged to film the state opening of Parliament 2 years ago, this is the first time it has been filmed in colour. Now, through the Royal Gallery came the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester and the Duchess of Kent, proceeding to their places in the House of Lords. In a few moments, Her Majesty would arrive at the Palace of Westminster, awaited by the Earl Marshal, the Duke of Norfolk, and the Lord Great Chamberlain. Escorted by the household cavalry, the Queen and Duke rode in the Irish coach from Buckingham Palace. This is the established pattern of the royal arrival on this state occasion. Centuries have passed since the monarch rode to Westminster to give instructions to his legislators. In the constitutional monarchy of today, the sovereign takes no part in framing the legislative program. But the opening of Parliament retains the grandeur that has invested it for centuries. Anomalously, by withdrawing from all controversial affairs of government, the monarchy has strengthened its hold upon the affections of the people. Now time for the Lord Great Chamberlain to convey the imperial crown to the royal robing room. The whole ceremonial of the state opening is performed with measured dignity, befitting its long and honored tradition. The moment was now approaching, at once moving and exciting, when Her Majesty would enter the royal gallery. The Lord Great Chamberlain gave the signal for the doors to be opened as the Queen and Duke approached. To watch this progress through the royal gallery is to be aware of how fortunate is Great Britain in her constitutional monarchy, and how fortunate in the mid-20th century that the crown is worn by a young and lovely woman, secure in the affections of her many peoples. The distinguished company in the chamber of the House of Lords rose as the Queen entered, slowly proceeding towards the throne from which, for the 7th time in her reign, she was to deliver the royal speech. As always, the legislative program outlined therein was prepared by the government and referred to measures which the ministers proposed to introduce in the forthcoming session.
My lords, pray be seated.
The Lord Great Chamberlain, with the Queen's assent, commanded Black Rod, Lieutenant General Sir Brian Horrocks, to go to the House of Commons and bid its members to come to the upper house. The state opening of Parliament is the one occasion in the year when the Queen, Lords and Commons meet together in person. Black Rod returned, having conveyed the summons to members of the lower house. The Commons were headed by the Speaker, followed by the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. Party strife was banished for the time being. All eyes in the now crowded assembly were directed towards the Lord Chancellor, Lord Kilmuir, as he placed the copy of the Queen's speech in Her Majesty's hands. In the clear tones of that voice with which the whole Commonwealth is familiar, Her Majesty graciously delivered her speech.
My lords and members of the House of Commons, my husband and I look forward eagerly to the series of visits we shall make next year in the Commonwealth, where we shall renew and extend the friendships which we value so very highly. In the early part of the year, we shall visit India and Pakistan on the invitation of the presidents of those countries. And I welcome especially this opportunity of seeing for the first time something of these two great nations of the Commonwealth. My government will play their full part in maintaining the North Atlantic Alliance and the other regional pacts to which they belong. My armed forces will continue to make their contribution to the safeguarding of world peace. The friendship which links us to our great ally, the United States of America, is a powerful element in the defense of peace. Throughout the coming session, my government will continue to give resolute support to the work of the United Nations. The improvement of relations between East and West remains a primary object of their policy. In particular, they will go on working for the success of the Geneva Conference on the discontinuance of nuclear weapons tests, and will do their utmost to achieve comprehensive disarmament under effective international control. They will continue to cooperate with our partners in consolidating the European Free Trade Association. At the same time, they will work towards the political and economic unity of Western Europe on a basis satisfactory to all the governments concerned. My Lords and members of the House of Commons, I pray that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.
The ceremony was now completed. The distinguished company had witnessed one more state opening, the beginning of the second session of the present Parliament. The continuity of democratic government is preserved. It is the privilege of this nation to enjoy the freedom of constitutional monarchy. Effective parliamentary government began at Westminster. It has survived the numerous changes of history and is still a model to the world. And how splendidly Her Majesty becomes her royal office.
Persons, meeting of ministry officials with members of staff at the hospital, and the necessary interventions that are required to be put in place. In addition, imposed travel restrictions remain in place. In fact, 3 countries have been added to the list of the 5 that were originally announced. China, Italy, South Korea, Singapore, and Iran are the original countries. That was previously made public. We have added to that Spain, France, and Germany. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade and I met this morning with the ambassadors of those countries as well as the EU ambassador, and have informed them that based on the risk assessment, train or public health caregivers.
New York. The Chief Medical Officer will give more information on this patient. Of note, 458 persons have come into the island from a country of interest since January 31. 25 persons are now in government facilities for quarantine. 91 are in home quarantine. But note that this number does not include those persons who are in community quarantine in 7 and 8 Miles Bull Bay. And 28 persons are currently in isolation in government facilities, hospitals that is. Our enhanced medical surveillance continues in the Bull Bay area, and surveillance activities include the mapping by our senior public health inspector, and this mapping includes each head of household answering screening questions and the temperatures being taken. If a positive sign of fever or symptoms to elicit the team being of concern, this information is collected and the relevant actions are taken. Arrangements have been put in place for medical officers to be on call in the community for medical direction in the community. Pharmacy services continue to be offered by the National Health Fund, and the Drug Serve Mobile Unit has been assigned to provide pharmacy services. The Bull Bay Health Center is open and will be open on Tuesday, of next week, and will provide curative services. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security continues to provide support, social protection support to the community, and the Permanent Secretary will give more information in that regard. I now invite the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa McKenzie, to come and give some more particulars on our first death.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Our first death occurred today. This is a 79-year-old male from Clarendon with a travel history from New York. He is known to have diabetes and hypertension. He presented to the Lioneltown Hospital on the 16th of March with fever, cough, and shortness of breath. And that time he was noted to be critically ill and was transferred to the Mandeville Public General Hospital, where he was isolated and treated. The patient had shown some improvement yesterday, March 17th, but today his condition started to deteriorate. His test came back positive today for COVID-19. He continued to deteriorate today, and during the process of transferring him to the University Hospital of the West Indies, before he was able to leave the Mandeville Public General Hospital, he demised at approximately 3 p.m. The family has been informed, and the public health team are currently on the ground, both at the home and at the hospital, to put in all the necessary efforts to make sure that we contain this possible source of infection.
So I will now invite the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to give an update on the social protection support that is being provided to the Bull Bay community. Also, we will take questions right after her presentation.
Afternoon, everyone. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security, we play a critical role in providing welfare support to those usually in the aftermath of a natural disaster, but this is a different kind. So far, as we speak now, there are teams on the ground delivering welfare packages to families, and to date, at the end of today, they would have distributed approximately 900 packages to families. The areas that were covered include St. Thomas Road, Parle Road, Morales Road, Main Road, Shooters Hill, the seaside along the main road there. We work with a joint team from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and Red Cross. They have been very instrumental in assisting us with packaging of food items. And I want to use this opportunity to express publicly the government's appreciation to Food for the Poor, the private sector organization of Jamaica, Industrial Sales, Excelsior, Crackers, and a number of other companies who have come forward to donate items for the families. The families not only receive food, but they also receive hygiene packages, which include basic things such as toilet paper, soap, and a small bottle of bleach in some instances. We continue with the distribution as the need arises, but I want to also use this opportunity to say that the team we do have some challenge on the ground, because we do have a number of families who want, to abuse the system and want to get multiple packages of food. Let me just say no, that we do have enough, and the team will be going out tomorrow again to continue distribution for any families who didn't receive, and to also go back to the first set of families who received on Saturday. Thank you.
Before we take questions, I need to use this opportunity to provide some information on contact tracing. So I'm going to ask Dr. Karen Webster-Carr, the Chief Epidemiologist, to come and provide, the National Epidemiologist, to come and provide some clarity. We have a chart here that shows how this is done.
So, good afternoon. What we are showing on this chart is that we have 7 chains of transmission for the positive cases. 4 of the transmission chains are single persons. 4 of the transmission chains are single chains. The first one has 5 persons that has been transmitted. So 1.1, 1.2 to 1.5, 1.5 being the one that was identified today. Then we have another chain, which is 3. It involves persons with a similar travel history. They came together to Jamaica, and so they are likely exposed outside of Jamaica or were exposed outside of Jamaica and probably had similar exposure. So we are not sure if they passed it to each other before or after they came to Jamaica. Likely before. The number 4 is related similarly, a group of persons who traveled from Malaysia, Dubai, Trinidad to Jamaica together, and they are likely have a similar exposure. They went to a religious function or festival, and they were in that area. They had confirmed cases that came to light afterwards. So whereas supposing that these were related and they were similar exposure outside Jamaica, they just became ill. One became ill before they arrived and one after arrival. So these are the persons that we have positive, the 15 positive cases.
Thank you very much, Dr. Webster-Carr. So we will now take questions. Yes, if you could.
Oh, no? Okay, great. Vashon Brown from TVJ. Help me with some timelines here. You said the patient presented at the Lioneltown Hospital on March 15th. What symptoms what symptoms are we seeing at that point, and when exactly was the person tested?
CMO.
Okay, so this case is now just being investigated. The person presented to hospital on the 16th, not on the 15th, okay? We got the sample yesterday, and so the testing started yesterday, and we're confirmed the positive this morning. In terms of all the symptoms and when the symptoms started, the public health team are on the ground and they're collecting that information. As soon as we get that information along with the contact history, start the contact tracing, we'll be able to provide more updated information.
You spoke about when the sample was received. When were the samples collected from the person?
I cannot say exactly when the sample was collected from the person. More than likely, the sample would have taken from the person presented. So from it became a suspected case, there's a travel history, a person is symptomatic, then they're classified as suspected and a sample would be taken. but the sample then would have to be received at the National Influenza Center for testing. So we know that the sample was received yesterday and the process of testing started yesterday, and we got a confirmatory positive this morning.
Dwayne Anderson, TVJ. I'm sure many Jamaicans listening in would be panicking now that news has come of a first death. What would you say to them? And also, what are the statuses of the other 14 persons who are being treated?
Okay. So, as of this morning, for the 14 persons that are under treatment, now we have 13 persons that are stable and are doing well. 3 are totally asymptomatic now, and we will start their discharge testing shortly. We have 1 person that has been in our care for about, I think, 5 days, and that person has some chronic illnesses and is showing some symptoms still. And there is a little, this morning when we spoke to the team on the ground, they said that the person was, not critically ill, but still ill. Right, so I just want to, just to refer to the chart that Dr. Webster Carr spoke about.
Welcome back to Primetime News. For those of you watching online at onespotmedia.com, a very special welcome to you. Thanks for staying with us. The government is running the risk of the deadly coronavirus seeping into the country. That's the view of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, which is calling for the number of public health nurses stationed at the airports to be increased. Now, our reporter Shamela Pullen sat down with the association's president, Carmen Johnson, in this Primetime News follow-up.
With the heightened threat of the coronavirus, the Ministry of Health last week responded by increasing surveillance at all ports of entry. TVJ News has learned that there are 6 public health nurses stationed at the Norman Manley International Airport and 4 at the Sangsters International Airport in St. James. President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, Carmen Johnson, argues that the numbers are not adequate.
What exactly we need to do is that maybe we need to look at having more persons out there, because then if you have only 2 persons per shift covering an airport where maybe 300 or 400 passengers coming in, it simply means that at some given point in time, you are going to have reduced outputs. Plus, again, remember, we are all human, so you will have to have bathroom privileges. So at a given point in time, when one is gone to the bathroom, you may be the only one that you have there. How well can you move that 300 passengers in a timely manner through the system?
She further explained that greater monitoring is needed.
If I'm going to St. James or I'm going to Hanover, they will refer me to the individual public health nurses within those parishes and to say this is somebody we need you to follow up. So they'll take my contact information where I'll be staying and they'll forward it while informing me that those persons will check on me to ensure. If they check on me and recognize that I start showing some signs and symptoms that they presume may be it, then they will seek to say we recommend this individual for medical care and for quarantine.
The NAJ president says nurses stationed at the Norman Manley International Airport are required to work at nights. The number of nurses who can be rotated is limited because to work at the airport, special training is needed. Many of the nurses who have been trained have either retired or migrated.
To work at the airport, you have to have specific training in understanding what to do. The airport itself has their requirement. And so these individuals who work at the airport have got to go through that level of training, that system that they have there to ensure that you are trained. And so what you find, although we may have 100 public health nurses, not all of those public health nurses are ready to work at the airport.
The NAJ also says there isn't a specially designated area at either airport to quarantine persons suspected of contracting the coronavirus.